Good evening. The Board of Adjustment meeting will now come to order. This is a regular Board of Adjustment meeting. The date is May 14th, 2024. The time is 5:30 p.m. We are in City Council chambers at 405 Municipal Drive in Kennedale, Texas. To address the Board of Adjustment regarding an agenda item, submit a request to speak form before the meeting begins. If there's anyone at this time who has not submitted a request to speak form, please do so. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes, must limit their comments to the subject indicated on the form, and should address the Board of Adjustment as a whole, rather than individual members or staff. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, the Board of Adjustment reserves the right to adjourn into executive session, closed session, at any time during the meeting to seek legal advice from the city attorney on any item posted on the agenda. Ross, could we please get a roll call?
Theodore Crum, place 1. Jessica Buchanan, place 2. Kelly Rod, place 4. And Pat Vader, place 5. Madam, we have a roll.
And I'm here too. So.
Yep.
Thank you. At this time, if we have anyone who is desiring to speak on this case, would you please stand so that we can swear you in?
Please raise your right hand. Any testimony that you provide be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Say you affirm or swear to that. All right.
Thank you. Our first item on the agenda is a regular session item for individual consideration, and that is approval of the minutes from the January 9th, 2024 regular meeting. I'm assuming everyone has had a chance to look over them. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve as written.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor? Raise your hand. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. Thank you. We will move on to our public hearing. This is BOA case 24-02 to receive comments and consider action on a request for a variance as required by the Unified Development Code for Article 14, Table 14.2, Employment Center District's EC1 pole signs to allow for a sign copy increase from 360 square feet to 672 square feet, the maximum allowable size by TxDOT for off-premise billboard signs located at 6704 Lindell Road, Block 7, Lot 4A, less ROW of Oak Crest Edition, City of Kennedale, Tarrant County, Texas. At this time, could we get a staff report, please?
Good evening, everybody. I see we haven't been together since January, and if no one has told you here recently, I miss you. You know, if you hadn't heard that in your lives, now you've heard it. So, all right. So here I'd like to present staff report for this particular agenda item. I'd like to provide you a summary, and we can get into some specifics. The applicant is here tonight as well to answer any questions that you have. So the property at 6704 Lindell Drive is owned by the Kennedale EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, and recently it was rezoned from R3 to EC1 Employment Center District. And the purpose on that, among other things, was it allowed for an increase, or it allowed for the construction of a pole sign at this particular location. So this is an EDC lot. The EDC is as a contractor has leased a portion of the property to construct a billboard sign. And so that billboard sign has been submitted for review, permitting, and it's been approved at the maximum height that is allowed in the EC1 district, at which is 75 feet high is the maximum height. And the sign copy that this particular zoning district allows for is 360 square feet, and that is the maximum square footage for a pole sign, in this instance, a billboard sign, and that's the largest that we have anywhere in our zoning districts throughout the city. And so that occurred here recently. City Council approved that zoning change. And following that zoning change, it allowed for that permit for the billboard sign or for the pole sign to be issued. It had been reviewed, it had been approved, but we couldn't issue it until the zoning was squared away. So that occurred here recently. And so the billboard sign, again, has been approved. It's because it's considered a billboard sign and it's adjacent to a TxDOT highway, it does require permitting and licensing through TxDOT, which they've obtained, they've secured. One of the differences between TxDOT's rules of billboard or pole signs, what we would call them here, along their highways and ours is, of course, the size that they could be. And so with that permitting comes, engineered plans for the base itself, the pole, wind load, speed, lighting, there's a photometric plan. All that has to be submitted, and they have to obtain a permit from the city saying they're okay to even put a sign along that right-of-way before they can get their TxDOT permit. So that's been addressed, that's been obtained as well. But the request that we have here is to increase it to the maximum allowable limit that TxDOT has, and it's similar to kind of other markets in the area that they operate. So he'll go into a little bit more specifics, but that's, the applicant is here again to request a variance to allow for that increase. So we've reviewed the application, we've discussed it, we've looked at zoning, and staff, we don't have any objection to this particular sign. I noted in the staff report that there's a caveat to consider. Oakcrest Addition is that addition is under redevelopment. So we've recently had zoning changes approved there. We've got some construction going on there. I will say that the Oakcrest Addition is probably the next part of town that will be developed. It's got highway frontage. Of course, we got TxDOT with the Southeast Connector. And so once that finishes up, that's going to kind of open up that gateway, make it more accessible in that particular area. So with that, the city has been long working on a hotel coming in that's in a parcel adjacent, well, not too far, it's further east, but it is across Lindale, kind of behind the QT. The EDC at one point owned that big piece of land that's back there, and they've sold that to another group that plans to build the True Hotel. It's a Hilton product, been in the works for some time. I believe a lot of that contract paperwork is now coming to a close, so that's starting to get finalized. So we'll see that. So that's one of the caveats to consider, is that that sits at the 5400 High Ridge Road, not to the east. And again, we have a hotel that will be placed there, likely to the south end of the property. So from what I understand, off of the frontage road, if you think in your mind's eye, a big rectangle. So on this side of the rectangle, off of the frontage road, I believe the cities and that developer are working on perhaps a restaurant there up front with the hotel kind of tucked in the back. But both of those would be west of where the QT currently is. Right now, it's just a place that 18-wheelers like to park, right? But that's what we have coming in that location. And so there's a potential that, an increased sign at this particular location, how it's going to maybe shield or screen or obstruct view of the hotel. That's one of the things that we did look at. With the height, the size, the lot that hotel would sit on, it does sit higher than Lindale. So Lindale's kind of down here, it's sort of up on a hill. So we have an elevation change already. So that's just one of the caveats that we wanted to bring to your attention. That particular property is zoned EC2. So this is EC1, EC2. Now, within EC2, pole signs are prohibited. So you can't put any pole signs, billboard signs on EC2 with an exception. It's always an exception, right? Makes my job fun. So the exception is if that lot that's zone EC2 has highway frontage. So if it's located off the service road, then it can have a pole sign or billboard sign. So This particular lot in itself could have a pole sign of their own. If they put it further back towards the hotel, which I would imagine they would, they could have a pole sign, and it likely may not require highway or TxDOT approval for that. So I do want to make that known as well. I haven't seen any plans of the hotel or what their proposed signage is going to be, so I can only envision what it would be. But that's just one thing to kind of consider. The applicant has provided renderings of what they operate in the area, or what's in the area, but also some signed copy that they also operate in other markets. And again, you've been provided with essentially most of what was submitted for the permits, like the light study, those types of things. Of course, should the increase of the sign be permitted, the permit itself will need to be revised. So we'll get updated plans, permitting, light study, those things that kind of come with that increased sign copy is what I'll call it. So to date, we have received one letter of protest from a property owner on Oakcrest Drive. So they own 2 lots off of Oakcrest Drive, and it's west of the subject property. And that property owner stated that a billboard that large could negatively impact my 2 lots on Oakcrest, which are currently zoned residential, I believe, or actually, they may be zoned C1, actually. But they really didn't provide any details as to how it would be negatively impacted. So we haven't really heard that so far, but we did provide you that letter of protest in your packet for your review. With that, staff, we recommend approval, in addition to any conditions that the board may find. So again, we don't object to this particular request. But with that, concludes my staff report. Again, we have the applicant here to answer any questions or specifics, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Thank you. At this time, Board, we will go around, and if you have any technical questions for Mr. Gonzalez, this would be the time to ask them. So we'll just start with you, Pat.
I don't even know where to start. There seem like a lot of exceptions there. Now, let me get this straight. So the EDOs, the Economic Development Corporation, got a zoning change that would allow this sign to be installed, correct? A pole sign to be installed. Okay.
Correct.
Prior to that, it wasn't allowed.
Right, it was zone R3.
And their perception is this area is gonna continue to develop, particularly after the Southwest Connector's finished. So right in the middle of this, we want to put in a sign that's over what's almost twice what's allowable by our code right now.
That's what the applicant, that's what the applicant would like to do. They've actually relocated the sign to a corner of the property, so the lot itself is still developable. I have a hard time saying that word.
No, I understand,
but
yeah, I'm just, it doesn't seem to me that if you're planning on developing that area, the first thing you do is put in a billboard of that magnitude. But I just want to make sure that I had it. And then the hotel that's proposed, it'll be put in there basically right next to this magnificent billboard that'll be going in. So, okay, I just want to make sure I fully understood what the process was.
Correct, yeah. The current, without a variance, right now, the max is 360, so 36 feet wide by 10, something of that nature, that'd get you the 360. I'll have to redo that math because I'm, but 360 square feet is the max on it, and it's permitted on that, so yeah, correct.
Okay. Dr. Crum? Okay, thank you. Kelly?
Yes, one weird question. Where's our city limit line on that side? Where's our city limit sign on that side?
The city limit,
Is it Salt Road?
I'm sorry, I don't think I heard correctly. Where's our city limit line?
Isn't this right at the edge of the?
Yeah, it's right, the city limit line stops probably at the service road, if not maybe in the center line of that service road. Correct.
And then going west?
Further west, it stops on the backside of Oakcrest Drive. So Oakcrest Drive is the last road that we have, and then you have the train tracks, and I believe it's likely a 100-foot right-of-way, so everything down Oak Crest Drive, that's where the city limit line stops.
So between this sign and Republic Service, where's our
Republic Service.
Republic Service? The next business, Republic Service of Fort Worth? The landfill building?
I'm sorry,
The landfill building? That's not in the city.
no, that's further west.
Yeah,
Correct,
okay,
yeah, that's
gotcha.
further west. So the business that we have on this side, there's a Four Sure Gates. It's a gate manufacturer, fencing. They do a great product. And the QT along the service road right now, that neck of the woods.
Kelly, do you have anything else?
One more, so if it's 672 square feet, what's that length and width? Help me.
I'll let the applicant answer that.
Got it.
On that, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
30
Thank
by
you.
20 will give you
Yeah.
600 feet.
That's what I was thinking.
So big.
Okay, thank you.
Size of a wall.
Jessica?
You said we're leasing this section for how long is that lease for?
I'm not aware of. I know that there's a contract, I believe, signed to lease this area. I want to say it's quite a while for the existing pole sign.
And then do we not have a current, I guess, zoning code to allow for a billboard this large already, so where we could just rezone it to where?
No, the maximum is 360, and
So
that's
we
on
don't have like
EC1.
an EC 3 or 4 or 5 that says you can go this big.
Yeah, no, 360 is our max that we have here.
I have just a couple of questions. So this is the packet you put together, correct? So I'm noticing in the packet, now my understanding is that in order to put signs of this nature in the county, the applicant has to be licensed in the county, is that correct?
In the county,
There's a reason I'm asking. I noticed that there is a copy of a Texas Department of Transportation commercial sign license number
Oh.
issued, but it's for Bayer County, not Tarrant.
no, it should be Tarrant. So I believe that may have been a oversight on that. But the permitting and the licensing is, I believe it's approved through TxDOT. But they are the licensing entity for the billboards and all that.
So
And it'll all
does,
get revised if it needs to get revised on it. But no permit has actually been issued just yet.
okay, so does the city have a copy of any kind of licensing for this applicant
I
for
imagine,
Tarrant?
I imagine that we do. I imagine that we do. So there's been a revision when we sent in the site plan. We had the site plan revised from, it was in a center location within the lot, and it was positioned to the corner. So with that came some resubmittal documents. I'll need to go back and look to see if we've got that.
Okay, thank you. And my second question has to do with the lighting study.
Okay?
I notice in the lighting study, there is a graph or chart, actually, a sign lighting study that has the billboard details, but it's for a 10 by 36, which would be a 360 square foot sign. And it gives us viewing distances and horizontal viewing angles for that size sign.
Correct.
But I'm noticing that we do not have any kind of reference for a sign the size that the applicant is requesting, which sort of puts the board at a disadvantage in making a determination. So do we have that information available?
That has not been performed just yet. So the study, which we have it labeled here as the light study that was for the permitted sign that we have here that we approved. Again, we kind of wanted to provide you some context of what's already occurred, what that light study showed, but we don't have an updated light study for 672 square feet. That'll need to be done for this specific location. But from what I understand, the applicant operates several signs at that size. So it's not something that, if TxDOT allows for it on I don't have concerns as far as lighting on our end. And he's accustomed to navigating those permitting requirements, the light study included, but I believe he can be able to speak more to that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any technical questions for staff?
Yes, Chair, a few more. What
Okay.
was the EDC going to use this property for? If we lease it to someone with a sign, is that?
I don't believe they've leased the entire property, just a portion of it to accommodate this sign.
Sign?
And so I don't know what the EDC has planned for that, but there's a potential. The EC1 district allows for a variety of uses, so like restaurants, retail, those types of things, which we envision would occur along a frontage road.
And this is to help me, a billboard, a leasing billboard, Company A or Company X could lease this billboard?
Correct.
Gotcha. How big is the EDC parcel? The total parcel?
I believe it's probably about maybe about an acre, maybe less than an acre, yeah.
So it's pretty close to the neighbor that's complaining.
It's off the frontage roads, off the service road, and I don't know about, we've received, again, one protest. I think we have one here tonight that operate. The other protest, those lots are vacant. But as far as residents go, we haven't received any complaints or anything, protests from residents.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, if we could hear from the applicants, please. Gentlemen?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Kirita. I am the owner of Kenjo Outdoor. This is my partner, Dan Nielsen. We're here to present our case and answer any questions that you might have. So we had approached the KEDC to purchase the parcel. But once they understood what we wanted to do with it, we are a sign company. We build signs and we operate the signs. Customers advertise on them, businesses advertise on them, and that's the entire business we do. So us buying the parcel was intentionally to just build the sign. After a few going back and forth, they decided that the best path for them forward is just to lease us a small piece of ground, 50 square feet. Like Nathan was explaining, we worked with them, we moved the sign away from any future development of the parcel. So everything seemed good. Of course, there is financial gain for them. Also, as part of the agreement is they get free advertising to do missing children or free market or whatever. So for EDC, I know it took them quite a bit of some time to discuss with internally and figure out what they want to do. So they decided it's a good path forward. We got it re-signed and we got the permits in hand. Right now, the size of the sign that is around under the code is 360 square feet, which is 10 by 36. It's a rectangle, and the height is 75. The height for us is good. That doesn't have to change. That's a pretty standard sign. 10 by 36 can make a good billboard. We will still do it. It's not a deal breaker, but it would put us in a huge disadvantage compared to any other sign on the highway. The number one standard size of a billboard in Texas, which is what's allowed by the state, is 14 by 48. That's what they call them, which is the 672 square feet.
1448.
So same thing, rectangle, just stretched out a little bit. So that's why we're here. We talked, as a matter of fact, I actually made a trip here. I discussed a little bit with the staff. I discussed with the KEDC, and I was like, do you think I'm asking too much? I mean, is this something you think, maybe we can present and offer our opinion? And from what they could tell, they did not see big concern. So that's why we ended up trying. Like I said, we still probably do it. We're still probably gonna do the sign at the allowed size, but it does put us in a little disadvantage. And knowing that The city does have a lot to benefit from the sign. We have a lot to benefit from the sign. We thought we would give it a shot. So, and we felt like if we do a good presentation, answer any questions that you guys might have, it would take care of, it would answer a lot, and I think you would feel comfortable that what we are asking is not gonna affect the city in a negative way. As far as the right study you talked about, that is actually not something that's requested when you apply. It's not part of the permitting process. That's just extra information we give. So basically what that means is, this is an electronic TV like that one. That study basically shows that as you go away from, of course, when you're close to the sign, it's really bright. But as you start going away like 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, it gives you the measurement of the light that you can see from there. So it goes down to retry a parking lot when you get to 300-400 feet. It's down to nothing. So when we presented that is when we applied for 10 by 36. We thought maybe the city might want to see that one. Like I said, it's not part of it's not required. That's why we don't have one for 1448. 1448, all it would do is, the total size was 75 feet. So our screen bottom was gonna be, say, 65 feet because it's 10. So the screen just takes more space on the bottom, and the signs is two, one for eastbound, one for westbound. They sit on an angle, we call it the V. It is tilted towards the highway, so all the light is flowing away, away from the neighborhood on the back into the highway. So that's why we did not think it would affect the neighbors at the back. We're happy, if you approve this and you really do want to see the study, we're happy to be a part of a conditional, approval and conditional that we provide that study. Like I said, it's not going to change that much. It's just basically the rectangle stretched out just a little bit. I think that's about it. Unless
I'll just say, so the 1448, I think John, my partner, mentioned it. It's the standard size allowed by TX dot. I know the math correlates it to close to double what the code allows currently, but it's not. It wouldn't look abnormal. It's very comparable to every sign that you would see in driving the interstates around here. It looks just like every other billboard that you're familiar with. It's not. It's not like you're creating a monstrosity that everyone's going to say, "Well, look at Kennedale." It's a very normal standard size.
For those who are very familiar, actually, we drove there this morning, and retry every sign on that stretch. I mean, all of them, retry all of them. At least 95% of them are 1448. The one retry across from the one I'm building, it is within the next city of, I think it's Forest Hill or Forest Park. That one is on a different city, but it is the same size. A month ago, we just came from Edge Cliff. Same thing, the code was allowing 500 square feet. So we went in, explained our argument about the 672 and being the standard sign, and they approved our variance. So we thought if we come here and present, answer any questions you guys might have, any concerns, we think we have a good chance.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, we're going to open up for questions from the board for the applicants. Dr. Crum?
Can you explain the automatic dimming capability that it says right here? Give some more information about that.
Yes, so these signs are the Cadillac. We are the owners of the company. You can tell we're very young. This is our, this is what we do. This is 100% how we feed our family. So when it comes to basically our investment, we do not go cheap. The signs we use are the Cadillac of the signs. And what that means is they have this capability that takes bright daylight to like the darkest night, divides it in 24 sections, and at any time the sign dims, like during the day, the sign is using so much power because it's bright outside, it's hard to see it, so it tries to get a little brighter so that people can see it. But as it starts getting dark, the sign dims, and it actually goes down to less than 20% of the power at night. It just dims down to be just a regular TV like this one. So that's what that means, and it's all automatic. It has a photo cell that does all that automatically. And if it needed to be any dimmer than that. As part of that height study, there's a way, you know, we can measure that, and if need be, we can bring it down more.
And how would that be determined and communicated to your company?
Sure. So normally, I'll just speak to some other municipalities we've dealt with in some other states, but we've seen it in multiple places. At dusk, you take a foot candle measurement from 300 feet, and it's supposed to be, I believe, 0.3 foot candles. And if it's above that, you have to dim it down. You know, we can dial it back. If it's below that, you know, if it's below that, maybe we would bump it up, but not if we're happy with the performance of.
But to answer your question, I think I understood your question like this, you know, who determines if it's bright? So text dot is very, very detailed when it comes to the brightness. Like your code, I don't think even goes down to like how bright it can be and all that. But because we have to comply with text dot because of the highway, they have their own set of regulation of what's bright. There's things they control. For example, the sign cannot play motion, like it cannot show like a video. It has to be stagnant. Whatever comes up has to stay there for 8 seconds. That is text dot controlled, and if you violate it, you're in big trouble with them. Brightness is another one. So manufacturers know those requirements, and off the factory floor, the sign comes preset to that. But in a case like this where actually the city involved because they own the property, there's so much power. All they have to do, like the sign is gonna have our nameplate, you know, so there's a way to get hold of any of us if it was bright or if it's broken or that. But for the most part, it comes all preset, works 99% of the time. But if there was a concern, all they have to do, Nathan or the city official or whoever, just a simple email to us will take care of it.
Thank you. Pat, do you have questions?
You said whether you have a variance or not, you probably would put up a sign. It might just not be as large.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Jessica? Kelly?
When you say 14 by 48, it's like this. This one's 14 by 48, and this one's got it.
Yes.
Do we need any other questions for the applicants from the board? Okay.
Quick addition to that, as far as the hotel that came up on the conversation, we actually, before we started talking to the city in depth, we had thought about putting it on the property. It sounded like the hotel property, there's gonna be restaurant, it was probably gonna be a better one. But then we saw the city property, which was vacant. We thought it'd be nice to own the property. That's how we approached the city. As far as I know, the hotel actually does want to do a similar sign on their property when that time comes. Like Nathan was saying, there is exceptions on their property where if it's highway frontage or whatever language he used, I do believe there's a chance they might end up doing a sign as well.
Anybody else? Okay, then at this time, we will open the public hearing. It is 6:03 p.m. Do we have anyone in the public who is here to speak in support of the applicants? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Do we have anyone here who is to speak in opposition to this application? Okay, I do have one request to speak. Now, Ross, you're going to have to help me out here. Do I read the person's name and then read what they wrote?
For the record, you can, if that applicant chooses not to speak publicly, we can just say we've acknowledged that we've received this.
And
This is
then read
they
what
said.
they wrote. Okay, so I'm going to then ask the person who submitted this, do you want me to read your name? Okay, thank you. So the speaker was Julie Denton. She is here on behalf of Karmali Holdings, Al Karmali, is that correct? Okay. This is what was written. The proposed signage will obstruct the view of parcel 13, is that correct? Owned by Karmali Holdings. The owner, Al Karmali, is happy to have the signage on Karmali Holdings property instead. Do I have anyone else at this time to speak in opposition? Okay. Applicants, you are, at this time, you have the ability to cross-examine the speaker. In other words, you may ask her questions, or you may ask, no? Okay, all right. You also, at this time, have the opportunity to offer a rebuttal of this opposition statement. Okay.
Typically, when we go to different cities, we don't like to lab anybody the wrong way. If we can do anything possible to make sure like everybody is happy, that's our like to be good partners. So this is just a logical way of thinking it. So how is it okay if if the complaint is don't do it on this sign, but do it on my property? You know, that part to me is a little off. Another thing is, it is a hotel. Typically, I mean, I'm talking about from my own perspective. When I'm driving, I don't see Embassy Suites. All of a sudden, I pull over, I'm going to Embassy Suites. That's typically not how it works. You already know where you're going to spend that night. It's not like a McDonald's where you see a nice hamburger. It's not point of sale. That's what they call them, point of sale advertising, where you're trying to catch somebody on the highway, that way they can get off. So the whole thing about blocking, I don't know. From my opinion, I feel like it's not very sorry to say that the sign is gonna block, but bring it to my property, it's okay, but if you don't, it's gonna block me. I feel like that part is a little not fair. And then the last item on that one is, this is a different parcel. It is actually not the one right next to the one we're talking about. There is another parcel in between, the fencing company. So each of these parcels, by law, it's entitled to have those kind of signs, especially like the height. I'm not changing the height. So I feel like even though the neighbors do have the valid point to argue, unless it's a really good argument, I don't know if they really should prevent a neighbor from, for example, if I own that property, let's assume not the city didn't even own it. How would I feel if the neighbor is not letting me do what the code allows me to do because they just either don't like it or would rather have it on their own property? So anyway, just thinking out loud, but I do like to be good neighbors. So if there's any way we can meet in the middle, that's exactly what we would like to do.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I guess if there's nothing else at this time, we will close the public hearing at 6:08. And at this time, I will open this up for discussion among the board members. Do I have anybody who wants to speak first? Pat?
I'm trying to picture when you leave our area, down here, even billboards on the interstate on the way to Houston or Waco or wherever you're going. I mean, they're out in the country in a lot of cases that I'm trying to picture how many giant billboards are between here and like Grand Prairie on Interstate 20. I mean, there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of companies. I'm just trying to, you'd think that you would recognize a 672 square foot billboard in your mind if you're thinking about it. My biggest issue right now is that that's property that's planning on being developed, and we really don't know what's going to go in there right now. And to start out with a massive billboard in there just doesn't seem the wisest decision at this point. I'm surprised that the Kennedale Economic Development Committee would venture into that area right now. That seems odd to me right now. But they do have the capabilities of putting up a 300-plus square foot sign if they prefer.
Thank you. Jessica?
So I'm assuming that the lease, we stand to gain a little bit of extra money if we go with the bigger sign versus the little sign. And is that the main, I guess, point for our city? Like, if we were going to call it beneficial for city of Kennedale, do we stand to get a significant amount more money to the city for that lease?
Nathan, that sounds like a question for you. They don't trust me with the money.
I don't think that the lease gets into additional revenue to the city based on the size. I believe that the terms of the contract are what they are based on the 50 square feet and what it is there. I think one caveat to consider, I'll take, and I drive down to Dallas all the time, so I pass quite a bit of billboards all over the Metroplex, really. The one, and I'm accustomed to seeing, billboards as, I spent 13 years in mid-cities, right? So there's a big one that once TxDOT redid their road, there's one that went up, a digital one off of Airport Freeway, and I saw that for 13 years. When I see something smaller, I'm like, oh, okay, it's cute, right? But so again, when we looked at it, forgive me, I didn't have the answer to the question about the 48 by 14 earlier. But when we compared that to 36 by 48, it's not that much, but 36 by 10, right? So if the height here, we're talking 4 feet, right? So additional 4 feet by another 10, and that makes up the rest of that square footage. I'm not one to compare Kennedale to other cities or anything like that, but people that drive by will, right? So it's kind of one thing I would say, let's think about it. We've got other billboards across the way, neighboring cities that are that 48 by 14. It seems when the applicant, when we were discussing about the standard size in his industry, I'm not familiar with that industry, in particular, so I had to kind of look around. I don't know how many miles on Google Street View I traversed online to look at various other billboards here in the Metroplex. We do have a billboard here in town that is, I would say, about that size off of the Parkway, and it is dilapidated, fallen down. This would certainly be a lot different offering here in Kennedale, for sure. So, but I hope I answered that question.
So kind of piggybacking off of Jessica's question, or I have a kind of a wondering. So we're leasing this property for the purpose of erecting this billboard, correct?
The EDC is, I believe,
Right, okay.
Yes, correct.
So what happens if at some point in the future, and of course nobody would want to see this happen, what happens if the lease expires and is not renewed? We're stuck with a defunct billboard or what?
Well, that's a good question. Our zoning ordinance would come into play often. When we're actually rewriting our zoning ordinances, one of the deficiencies we have is defunct signage, right? Businesses that have gone out of business, but you still see the sign on the building. In the attempt to kind of be pro-business, I would say have that sign removed and put a for lease up. Hey, we're open for business. When you drive by down a Parkway and you see an existing sign on a business that is no longer there, and someone's shopping around for a place to set up shop, they don't know. And I talk to applicants, business owners all the time, and it's difficult for us, for staff, to, hey, where in town can I open up this business? Do you have a amount of square footage? I'm driving down the Parkway. Well, there's a sign already there at that business. I don't know if they're open for business or not. So with a billboard, We would probably move to have it removed at that. And I imagine in his industry, that's something that is common, that those get removed. Again, we have one in town that I would like to see come back to life, because we can, you know, with us being pro-business on that, let's do what we can to advertise what we have here in Kennedale and in our area as well. So it's kind of where I stand on the matter. But the zoning would, the far the rewrites go, we want to add some language in there that would require that defunct signage to be removed, you know, following 30 days, 60, 90 days, whatever the city council seems appropriate, once a business goes out of business. And we would certainly wouldn't like to see that, but that does happen.
In the event that that unfortunate event did occur, who would incur that cost? Us or someone else?
Well, that would be the sign owner to have that, just like a property owner would. I haven't seen the lease, I don't know the details of the lease. I would imagine there's some provisions in there that speak to that. But again, I'm simply looking at, I don't speak on behalf of the EDC. It's just a request of the applicant to bring before you. I tell you kind of what's on the books right now, and whether or not we have any objection to it, and we really don't.
Thank you. Kelly?
May I address, was it Kamal Holdings? Okay, Kamali. And so one of your concerns, though, is that you feel like it's going to be an obstruction to your property. Thank you. And then, Nathan, what's the chance? Is that about a 16-foot wall?
I would say it's, you got 8-foot doors here.
Are they 10 or 8?
I think those are 8 foot,
okay.
yeah. That's an 8.0 door. Yeah, it's
Probably about 14 foot tall then, isn't it?
If you go all the way to the ceiling, it's
double that. So it probably
To the
come up
fur down.
top of that clock maybe, or maybe
Yeah.
halfway up that clock.
Yeah, I was just thinking to the fur down, so that's probably so.
Oh, yeah, up in the air.
Yeah. Give me a guess, or can I go step it off?
Let's see.
About
you're trying to go with 48 feet.
48 feet. What does it look like?
Well, I've got a wheel in the truck. I can bring that out. My tape measure only goes to 23 feet, 25 feet. I try to keep the cost down. I don't want to get
Step it off for us? That'd be great.
I've got a size 14 here, so
24. That's about 32 feet across that wall. It's probably bigger than that wall. It's bigger than that wall.
Okay, yeah. And I guess while he's doing that, no.
well, I don't know if that would be, yeah, 40.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, you're.
yeah, to the fur down, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is it a,
75 feet in the air.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty big.
It'll seem small.
Yeah. Is it appropriate for the EDC to be here and let us ask them some questions? Because it seems like our questions are around why here, why now, and what about the future and those things.
I don't have an answer for that.
So maybe, this has nothing to do with this case, but going forward, that may be something we want to be conscious of.
And it may not be appropriate, but
I don't
they're
know,
the
they're in,
people leasing, so.
yeah, they're the leaser,
Less-
leasee,
lessers, yes.
yeah. I'm learning new words.
Okay.
And then one residential neighbor that owns 2 lots had concerns.
They're off of Oak Crest.
Okay,
If it's, I believe it provided you as like a snippet of the area there. It should show up in pink if it is on that, if it's commercial. But the lots on Oakcrest are currently vacant. Vacant, so they're,
Okay, so if you look, board, at, I believe it's your next to the last page in your packet.
Got all the people. And our future plan, one more question, is for, you said this is right for revitalization, and does our future plan consider it to be more commercial
correct, yes.
area up in here?
Because of the employment
Yeah,
center.
center.
What I'm doing is I'm pulling up our existing zoning map. Yeah, those lots are zoned C1 commercial. C1 commercial. So those particular lots in the current zoning district that they have wouldn't allow for a pole sign of that height on there. It would require a zoning change.
So we have the letter that is in our packet, and then we also had the individual who was here in opposition tonight, correct? Okay,
On behalf of the property owner there at 5400 High Ridge, correct.
okay. Thank you. Board, do I have any other discussion? So,
To the west.
ma'am, what is the address for this? What is the address? Okay, that's okay, thank you.
5400 High Ridge.
5400 High Ridge.
So, Ross, is it possible to show this screen? Yeah. What I'll do is I'll pull it up. I'll pull our zoning map up on for
Please.
your review here. Okay, so here is our subject property at 6400, excuse me, 6704 Lindale. The Carmali property is here. Right here. So here's QT. This location, if you've ever been, you shouldn't be cutting around traffic when it backs up, but if you ever did, you'd come out this drive and it's this back lot that's right here, right? Don't let the PD catch you doing that. The well, that'd be QT's property. That is a planned development. It does not allow for, it's a different zoning. The lots on Oakcrest are located here, so they are, I
Basically
wouldn't say
behind?
adjacent. I'm sorry?
Kind of adjacent and behind?
I would, it's not, it doesn't touch, but it's back here off of the turnaround under the over the highway by the railroad. So that's these first two lots that are here, and these are vacant lots. The subject property again is right here. So these lots really don't have much highway frontage. They front Oakcrest Drive. In fact, this lot here is owned by the EDC. This lot here is owned by the EDC, as well as, I mean, this whole, the frontage off of the service road, and this particular lot is owned by the EDC. This one was rezoned EC1. Now, our future land use plan that the city has envisions this whole area as what we call the Employment Center District. So that's where that EC stands for. And in that, you get a mix of things. You get retail, restaurant, multifamily, business, office, just a bunch of different things. And of course, we know that the plan itself is being updated. So here's where we kind of envision some transit-oriented development that's been discussed with the steering committee. Of course, I can't base any of my reviews or decisions off of that until it's adopted. But that's been the discussion here late as far as what's coming in Oakcrest in that area. Right here. So it's this rectangle lot that's here. And from what I understand, the hotel will be tucked towards the back with a restaurant up front. And they themselves have the ability to put up a sign on there, a pole sign as well. So, but in the general location of this lot, I'll dial down into it. It's in this corner here, is where they've leased that particular property. Again, it's vacant. It's high enough to where if we have any buildings that go in there, it's not going to interfere with any obstruction of building heights or things of that nature. And the EDC also, I believe, purchased these particular lots here off of off the railroad. So it's these particular lots that are privately owned. So the EDC controls this property, the frontage, and of course, it controlled the frontage here where it's engaged and sold that to a developer to sell there. And again, we've got discussions here for some other types of development. Our current billboard that we have is in this location, the one I mentioned. But around here, we just have pole signs, McDonald's, QT, things of that nature.
Any other discussion from the board? No, that's okay.
This is just me, but I don't think I'm alone. When I look for a hotel, I don't see where it is on the highway. I never pulled up and said, oh, I'm going to pull over here. Number one. Number two, I don't see it really big enough because of the blockage of that far apart. I can understand the concern, maybe it's kind of bright and in the way, but, you know, if you go online and you make a reservation and you build it.
Any other discussion, board? And at this time, we would entertain a motion. Okay, so the way we do that, if I can find the verbiage, help me out here, somebody, anybody. Yeah, mine is too now. Is that you would make a motion to approve BOA case. I have a motion and a second, so we will have a vote. All in favor, if you'll raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, we did not, the motion failed for lack of a majority. Do we have a second motion?
I make a motion, we deny the requested variance for BOA case 24-01.
Or 02? Pat, I think it's 02.
My apologies. BOA 24-02.
Okay, I have a motion, another motion. Do I have a second? There is a motion to deny BOA case 24-02. I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Go ahead, Kelly.
I got a procedural question. The approval was voted down.
Was voted
We
down.
have a denial on the table. I'd really like to hear what the EDC has to say. Can we?
So, Ross, I have a question then. Can we make a motion to table this until we get more information?
If we don't have a second on mine, we
it can die on the floor. And it doesn't look like we have a second, so that motion would die. So do I have another motion? Kelly?
Let me get my numbers. I move for BOA case 24-02 that we go under, table this at this time and go under further advisement and have discussion with the EDC present to answer questions.
So we have another motion. This is unknown territory for me.
It would need to be tabled to when, to the next meeting, so that would be the motion, I believe. that you
Okay,
would make.
so if you want to add that you want to table it until the next meeting?
Table it to the next meeting with the understanding, I'm going to speak, so I'll get pushed, if I get pushback, that's fine, that we hurry up because the applicants also are waiting, that if we need to
Exactly.
do this before the next scheduled meeting, that for convenience, that would be great. So I move we table it until a time of convenience to review BOA case 2402 with the EDC present.
So I have a third motion on the table. Do I have a second for that one? I have a second. So everyone in favor of tabling this until the next meeting with an emphasis on being expeditious about that meeting, please raise your hand. Anybody opposed? It looks like we have a unanimous on that third motion. So at this time, we're going to table this case and give us a chance to get information from the EDC. And I will also add, maybe that would also give the applicants a chance to come back with some information and some of the things that we've asked about here today, and possibly get in contact with the individuals who were in opposition. Okay, so at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn if there is no other business. Do I have a motion to do that? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Is there anybody opposed? This meeting's adjourned at 6:32 p.m.